distinguished gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member, for allowing us to have these hearings. I think they are important, and I do thank you, the members of the panel. You have been outstanding, and I appreciate what you're trying to do to help us. It appears to me that we are going to be faced with some philosophical introspection, that we're going to have to look deeply within. And I reference this because as I listen to you talk about persons who are survivors, who are eligible for vouchers, I also know that we have people who are similarly situated, who are not survivors, who are starting to ask, where's my help? I too am in need. And many of them are of the opinion that it's no fault of their own that they're in need. Persons who are adopting families. We have families that were in need of help before this dastardly hurricane came along, and they're asking, where's my help? And what I'm saying to you is, I think that we are going to have to look at the whole question of poverty in this country and how we address it, because we are finding now that there is a way if we have the will, and we are demonstrating that we have the will as it relates to this disaster. And I support the methodology that's being proposed. I think these are good measures. The whole notion of relaxing the rules so that you can get people into units without having to comply with some rule that says that you can't have your boyfriend in with you. I understand some of these rules. But in the final analysis, we have to acknowledge that we have a lot of poverty in this country, and that we really have not designed a systematic approach to dealing with the poverty in this country. And there's a rule that I have governed my life by, my political life by. And the rule is, it is not enough for things to be right, they must also look right. It may be right for us to give the vouchers to the victims of the hurricane and exclude others who need them, but it doesn't look right. And there's a whole list, a long list of things that we are doing that may be right, but they don't look right. And I think that at some point that catches up with you, because the world is watching us. I'll give you a sterling example. We had persons who arrived in Houston by way of bus from the Superdome. And we had some other persons who came from that same area, but they managed to get to Houston by car, various means. They could not get into the Astrodome. Same location, came from the same location, but they came by different means of transportation. So we had to look inward and say, is this right for them to be excluded simply because they didn't get here on the bus? And we did work out a means, thanks to the mayor and the county judge and others who were involved. We were able to resolve the problem. And I think that this is a great opportunity now for us to look beyond Katrina and look at America and decide how we can go forward and deal with the whole question of poverty in America. I think that's the greater question that is really before us. And I think that if we govern ourselves by the notion that it's not enough for things to be right, they must also look right, I think we'll make some far-reaching decisions that will benefit all of the people who are less fortunate than some of us in this room. Now, a question, and this question goes to all of you in a very general sense. First, a comment. There is the notion that we need to have the survivors located as close to their homes as possible. This will give them an opportunity to have work in the area. The money that they will get from the government can go back into the economy in the state. The $26,000, it goes back into that state's economy. There are all sorts of good reasons why we should do this. How would you develop a program so that we can have them in the states where they're coming from? If those who want to return, obviously, if people don't want to return, we have to give them the option of staying where they want. In this country, we have freedom of movement. But those who want to return, what's the best way to design a program to get this done? In Texas, we have approximately 250,000 people, and many of them are now leaving Texas, and I've heard stories about people going as far away as Utah and some other places, but they're getting removed, they're getting relocated, and I'm not sure that all of them will traverse that distance back to their states. So how can we design a system to have them located in their states so that they can help the economy of the states that they're from, continue to be productive citizens in those states? Yes, ma'am. So you would have the vouchers go to the evacuees? Is that the way
as
you
they
would?
have in other disasters.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mention this that specifically because I've had a number of community-based organizations to visit with me, and they have been very helpful, and they're depleting their resources, and they're asking, how can we replenish our resources so that we can continue to help? Now, when I posed this question to a representative from FEMA, I was told that FEMA does not make direct payments to individuals who are not evacuees, that it does not do this. Let me, if I may, and then I'll come right to you. My concern is these agencies that have carried the burden, we want to leave them with a good feeling about what they've done. And right now, many of them are not feeling real good about the process and the prospect of having depleted their resources, and I'm not sure what their response will be the next time. I think that we want to make sure that they have a good experience with this to the extent that we can. To continue, when that representative from FEMA indicated that while, and I found this very interesting, while FEMA cannot pay the individual, FEMA can pay the state, and the state can pay individuals. So there is a roundabout way of getting this done. While I'm interested in the roundabout way, I'm also interested in formalizing that process to the extent that we can, so that the state, and Mr. Chairman, if I might, I just wanted to share this with you. Having talked to FEMA about reimbursing community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and found out that they cannot make direct payments to these organizations, but the state can, and FEMA can reimburse the state. So right now we're trying to work on some means of formalizing this informal process, because we have a lot of faith-based institutions that really stepped up to the plate, and it would be great if we could somehow help them to replenish some of their resources. They may not get all of their resources and assets restored, but it would be great if we could get some of those replenished. So I'd like to work with whomever you think appropriate, and I've talked to my ranking member about it as well. And if that's something we can do, I think it would be great. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Would anyone else like to respond to the question of how you would design the system so that people can get back to their states, their cities, their locales? All right. Now this, if I can have one more, thank you, Mr. Chairman, one more thing. The people who will be working, they obviously will be paid some amount. I will tell you, I almost had tears to well in my eyes when I read about how the normal amount that would be paid may be reduced. We're catching people when they are most vulnerable, when they need help the most, and we're talking about paying them less than we are paying people in other areas who might be doing the very same work. That's very disconcerting. It really is. I don't know how you would propose that this be addressed, and maybe I'm addressing it to the wrong panel. I'm just not sure. But it causes a lot of heartache to see this kind of thing occurring to people who are most vulnerable, that they're going to be paid less. Have any of you encountered this before, where the wage scale was dropped in an area after this kind of devastation? Are you familiar with the specifics of what I'm talking about? You are? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Any other person want to respond to that? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I thank you. You've been very generous with your time.
I have more time. I want to respond to it, though.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to respond to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I may, friends, as a neophyte, I'm not sure that I could have landed on a better housing committee than this one. Our chairman truly does care, and it's evidenced not only in his words but in his deeds. And I thank him for his kind comments, and I appreciate very much your efforts to be of assistance to us. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for his kind comments.